Welcome to Biology Minds. Today we're going to talk about the digestive system. So as we move away from the respiratory system, that kind of finishes up like a sub-unit that you could think of, where we talked about the circulatory system with the blood and the heart and all of the vessels, and how the respiratory system and the lungs really play into that. But now we move on to a very important unit where we talk about digestion along with the urinary system. So the first part of this is talking about digestion. Okay, as we've seen throughout the course of the year, we see that we try to separate everything in the course, but really you can't separate everything because everything is intertwined. And what's really important, as much as we think of the respiratory system and the circulatory system as being very important, the digestive system really is needed in order to drive everything. We need energy, we need nutrients in order to drive everything. So the digestive system, it's there to acquire nutrients from the environment. Okay, we have to eat. We're not plants. We can't acquire energy from the sun and make our own energy. So we need to acquire nutrients and that energy in order to continue living and in order to have energy, cellular energy for respiration. So you have anabolism or anabolism, uses raw materials to synthesize essential compounds. Then you have catabolism, which decomposes substances to provide energy cells need to function. Catabolic reactions, they're going to require two essential ingredients, which are going to be oxygen as well as organic molecules. So typically when we talk about the organic molecules, we're talking about carbohydrates, fats, along with proteins. So that the digestive tract, sometimes it's called the GI tract or the gastrointestinal tract or the alimentary canal, which maybe you'll hear less often. All talking about the same thing. It's this muscular tube and extends from the oral cavity all the way down to the anus, right from start to finish. So it passes through the pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, and then to the large intestine. And we see that this is an excellent diagram that's found in the textbook that shows you just the major organs that are involved with the digestive system, and we're going to talk more about them as we move on. So the functions of the digestive system, you're going to see ingestion, mechanical processing, obviously digestion, secretion, absorption, and then we have to get rid of our waste, so excretion. Ingestion occurs when materials enter the digestive tract via the mouth. Mechanical processing, crushing, and shearing makes materials easier to propel along the alimentary canal or the digestive tract. Digestion is the chemical breakdown of food into smaller organic fragments for absorption by digestive epithelium. You have secretion, is the release of water, acids, enzymes are a big one. We need enzymes as well as buffers and salts by epithelium of the digestive tract and by glandular organs. Absorption is the movement of organic substrates, electrolytes, vitamins, and water across the digestive epithelium into interstitial fluid and digestive tract. Excretion is the removal of the waste products from the body fluids, a process called defecation, which is removing feces or fecal matter. The movement of digestive materials by muscular layers of the digestive tract consists of visceral smooth muscles. So we've talked about cardiac muscle, we've talked about skeletal muscle, and now we see that we really get into talking about smooth muscle and how important that is in the digestive system. Along the digestive tract, it has rhythmic cycles of activity, and it's controlled by these pace-setting cells. Cells undergo spontaneous depolarization, triggering wave of contraction through the entire muscular sheet. You have pace setter cells. They're going to be located in the muscularis mucosae and the muscularis externae surrounding the lumen of the digestive tract. We talk about peristalsis, which consists of waves of muscular contraction where it moves a bolus or a clump of food along the length of the digestive tract. Peristaltic motion involves circular muscles contract behind the bolus, and then you're going to have longitudinal muscles ahead of the bolus contract, and it's going to create this wave of contraction in circular muscles. It just gives you a diagram where we see that the bolus is being pushed along this alimentary canal. Segmentation, cycles of contraction. You're going to churn and you're going to break up or fragment the bolus and mix contents with the intestinal secretions that are essential in chemical breakdown. Does not follow a set pattern, does not push materials in any one direction, but that bolus is being mixed and mixing with those intestinal secretions. You're going to see this diagram where we have the mouth, and the mouth is going to contain our teeth, and then we have our nasal cavity up here, which we've talked about previously, and the roof of the mouth is made up of this hard palate and also made up of this soft palate, which is going to end with the uvula that we know about, and it is going to go through this oropharynx. Food is going to be chewed up. The tongue is going to manipulate it and send it where it needs to go, and it's going to go through this oropharynx down to the laryngopharynx, and it's going to continue on to the esophagus. So we have salivary glands. We have three pairs actually. You have parotid, you have the sublingual, and you have the submandibular salivary glands. Each pair has a distinctive cellular organization with different properties. You have the parotid salivary glands, which are inferior to the zygomatic arch and produces serous secretions, most importantly the enzyme salivary amylase, which is going to start breaking down starches, which are carbohydrates. All right, so as we look, the first thing that's going to start getting broken down are the carbohydrates. All right, as soon as we put something in our mouth, our salivary glands are going to secrete this saliva that has salivary amylase in it, and is going to start breaking down those starches. All right. Sublingual salivary glands are going to produce mucus secretions, acts as a buffer as well as a lubricant. And then you have the submandibular salivary glands, which are going to secrete buffers, mucins, which are glycoproteins, and salivary amylase, which is important in breaking down those starches. Saliva, the glands produce about 1 to 1.5 liters of saliva a day. That's a lot of saliva. 70% is going to be by the submandibular glands, 25% by the parotids, and about 5% by the sublingual glands. Saliva is mostly water. It does contain some electrolytes, buffers, mucins, antibodies, enzymes, and waste products, but over 99% of it is water. So it is being used as a lubricant. We're adding that to the food, to the bolus, so that it can be pushed through the alimentary canal, through the digestive tract. So the teeth, they are going to be responsible for mechanical digestion, for breaking up that food mechanically. We call that mastication. So chewing is when you masticate. Mastication is going to start breaking up, and then chemical digestion is going to start with that salivary amylase. The teeth are important. They have dentin, which is a hard mineralized matrix similar to that of bone. It is going to be covered with enamel. And enamel is made of a mineral called hydroxyapatite. And this makes teeth very hard, and that's why forensic investigators are able to look at teeth that are many, many years old, that have when the rest of the body has broken down, even the bone started to break down, the teeth are still there. We can still look at the teeth and compare them to dental records, because this hydroxyapatite is so hard and resists degradation. So you have the dentin, and then within you're going to have pulp cavity. All right, which is going to receive blood vessels and nerves through the canal of the root canal. You have a root at the bottom, you have a crown at the top, and in between that area we call it the neck. So you have the crown up here, you have the root down here, and you have the neck in between. So we see here that we have this dentin here, and we have enamel here, which is made of that hydroxyapatite, and then we have a pulp cavity, and you're going to have this root canal where nerves and blood are going to come into the tooth. We have different types of teeth We have the ones in the front that are the incisors. You're going to have the canines on the sides. You're going to have the premolars, and then you're going to have our molars. So when you look at our teeth, it's important to realize that they have a distinct pattern to them. They are different than other organisms' teeth. So you look at a wolf's teeth, they're going to have a lot more incisors and canines because they are going to eat a lot of flesh and they need those in order to tear, where things that eat a lot of vegetation are going to have more premolars and molars. They're there for grinding up plants. But we are omnivores that have this great set of teeth for being a jack of all trades, being able to really consume anything that we want. It comes initially from us being, once upon a time when we were primates, we were frugivores. All right, so we see that our teeth are very similar to other frugivores, all right, fruit-eating primates. Once upon a time when we were in the jungle, before we were cast down and forced to evolve into Homo sapiens, we saw that we were frugivores. We ate fruits. Okay, as we moved away from the jungle, we saw that, hey, now we are eating other things, tubers, potatoes, roots, and by doing this, we need to be able to not only have these canines, which are good for getting into that flesh of the fruit, but also we need these molars that are going to help grind up these hard roots and the uncooked potatoes. So we have this jack of all trade type of set of teeth now. Sometimes you'll see on Facebook or in memes where these these holistic groups, these vegetarian pushing people that want these ideas to spread. They want people to get away from meat. They're gonna say, "Hey, look at these teeth," and you'll see memes about it. Look at our teeth. Do they look like a wolf's teeth? And that must mean that we're meant to be vegan. We're meant to be vegetarians. In reality, our teeth are not like organisms that only eat vegetation either. They're omnivore teeth. They are teeth that are excellently evolved to be a jack of all trades for us to eat both meat and for us to eat plants. Okay, so that whole idea is just them pushing their propaganda. In reality, we're meant to eat everything, and we evolved in order to eat everything because when we were cast out, right, it was slim pickings and we ate whatever we could, and we survived over thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years by eating roots and tubers and really anything that we could forage for. So you have the four different types of teeth in our mouths, and we have the pharynx, which we would call the throat, common passageway for food, liquids, and air. Okay, so the pharynx is part of both the respiratory system and the digestive system. You have regions of the pharynx where you have that top part in the nose, which is the nasopharynx, and you have the lower part, the oropharynx, and then even further down when you get close to the esophagus, in the trachea, you're going to see the laryngopharynx, and then food passes through the oropharynx and the laryngopharynx to the esophagus. The esophagus is this hollow tube that then goes to the stomach. The stomach is there for storage of ingested food, mechanical breakdown of ingested food. So we start breaking down food in the mouth chemically, both mechanically and then chemically with the salivary amylase, but then the stomach is going to further break things down with hydrochloric acid as well as enzymes. So we have this anatomy of the stomach, and you're going to have just a basic anatomical breakdown. You're going to have the esophagus. You have this top part, which is known as the fundus, and then you have the body is here, and this area is called the greater curvature. This is the lesser curvature, and you have this bottom part towards the end, which is called the pylorus, and then you're going to have this opening closing area called the pyloric sphincter, which is going to close and then open up when it wants to allow a bolus into the small intestine, which starts with the duodenum. What you're going to see is you're going to have hydrochloric acid, which is going to start breaking down more things once we've moved away from just coming in contact with the salivary amylase. And you're also going to have pepsinogen, which is going to be converted to pepsin, which is going to help break down proteins. So now we went from just starting to break down carbohydrates to now we're breaking down carbohydrates and proteins. And we're going to see secretion of gastrin, which is going to be a hormone that's going to signal for gastric juices to be secreted, because we want to make sure that that bolus is continuing to be able to move through that digestive tract without any issues. The pH of the hydrochloric acid is 2.0. It's very acidic. All right. The stomach is constantly not only is it churning because of the rugae, so you have these folds in the stomach, which are called rugae, and it's constantly churning, but we're also constantly replacing the tissue of the stomach, the lining of the stomach, because the pH is constantly wearing away at that tissue. So you have the acid as well as the pepsin, which is going to continue to break down the bolus, break down the foods. Then it goes on to the small intestine, which plays a key role in digestion. It's really where we're going to absorb all of our nutrients, not necessarily our water and our vitamins, but most of our nutrients are going to be absorbed through the small intestine. 90% of nutrients absorption occurs in the small intestine, so that's where absorption is really playing a major role. You have the first section, which is the duodenum, the second section, which is the jejunum, and then you have the third section, which is the ileum, which is going to then link up with the large intestine at the ileocecal valve. And this just gives you a representation of, it starts in the duodenum, goes to the jejunum, and then you have the ileum here, and then it is going to link up right here with the large intestine. You also have, just as kind of like a side note, you have the pancreas, and the pancreas is going to do two things. It's going to secrete the endocrine, from the endocrine portion of it, it's going to secrete the hormone insulin, and it also has an exocrine portion, which is going to secrete digestive enzymes as well. So you got the exocrine with the enzymes, and you have the endocrine with the insulin. And we see it's going to secrete insulin and glucagon as the endocrine cells of the pancreatic isolates. And then you have the exocrine cells, which are going to secrete pancreatic juice, which contains digestive enzymes. The specific digestive enzymes we see are pancreatic alpha amylase, also called often pancreatic amylase, which is going to break up carbs further. Pancreatic lipase, which is going to break up fats, along with bile, that will also break up fats. Nucleases, which are going to break up nucleic acids. All right, so if we have some DNA in some of the cells that we consumed from a fleshy piece of meat, we're going to break up that that DNA found in those cells, and we're going to turn it in. It's going to go from those nucleic acids into the sugars like deoxyribose and our phosphate group and our nitrogenous bases. And then you have proteolytic enzymes, which are going to further break up proteins. And the liver is going to be there. It's a large visceral organ, extends to the left hypochondriac and umbilical regions, and it performs essential metabolic and synthetic functions. So you have a common bile duct. All right, it's formed by a union of the cystic duct and the common hepatic duct, which passes within the lesser omentum towards the stomach, penetrates the wall of the duodenum. So we're going to see it's going to go through the duodenum and meets the pancreatic duct at the duodenal ampulla. This is an excellent representation of this, and you see that the liver is going to play a huge role in lipid metabolism, but it also plays a role in carbohydrate metabolism, amino acid or protein metabolism, waste product removal, vitamin storage, mineral storage, and then drug inactivation. So important in inactivating drugs. You have the gallbladder, which is a hollow pear-shaped muscular sac, which is going to store the bile. Then you have the large intestine, which is going to be broken up into its own segments as well. And the function of the large intestine is for reabsorption of water, compaction of intestinal contents into feces so that we can excrete them, absorption of important vitamins produced by bacteria, such as E. coli. Okay, one of the vitamins that it'll help with is B12, and the storage of fecal material prior to defecation. So here we see that the ileum of the small intestine is going to link up with the large intestine. This portion is called the cecum, which then goes to the ascending colon, which then goes to the transverse colon, which then goes to the descending colon, and then from there it's going to go to the sigmoid colon, to the rectum, and then to the anus. So this is our small intestine. We're going to see that it further helps to reabsorb all the water that we put into our food in order to make sure that it moves along the way. Well, we want to save that. It would be wasteful if we constantly were shedding that water. So we're going to bring that back in along with the vitamins, and then we're going to create that fecal matter in order to excrete it. So as we move forward, keep these things in mind, as well as when we talk about the kidney and the renal system, and how we are going to excrete nitrogenous waste from there as well, and how we are going to maintain homeostasis with all of these.